He claimed the government was closing in. That was the story he told, the one he repeated until he believed it himself. Richard paced the kitchen, his movements sharp, his eyes constantly checking the windows as if the authorities were already at the gate. He spoke of lawsuits, of shadow debts, and of business partners who had suddenly turned into predators. He needed a vault. He needed a place to park his assets where no creditor could reach them, and he had decided I was that vault. He looked at me across the granite island, his expression one of patronizing confidence. He truly believed he was the smartest person in the room. He saw me as a blank space, an invisible shield, a person with no agency of her own. He poured a drink, his hands steady, his smile tight. He did not ask for my help. He announced his plan as if he were bestowing a favor upon me. He talked about temporary measures. He was building his own cage, and he was asking me to hold the door open. Richard sat at the polished kitchen table and fanned out the legal documents. They were crisp, white, and heavy with intent. He pointed to the transfer agreements, the account reassignments, and the deed to our home. His smile was practiced, the same one he wore when he needed something, promising a future of ease and comfort. Temporary, he insisted, his eyes searching mine for a flicker of doubt. Just until things settle down. I watched his fingers tap against the paper. He thought he was being a master strategist, outmaneuvering the system by hiding his assets in plain sight. He had no idea that I had already sat in a lawyer's office 3 weeks before this conversation. I had walked through the implications of every signature, every clause, and every legal loophole. I knew exactly what these papers meant and the absolute, irreversible power they granted me. I took the pen from his hand. My grip was firm. I did not hesitate. I signed the transfer agreements, the deeds, and the account reassignments, one by one. My hand remained steady, my breathing even, my expression entirely unreadable. I looked him in the eye as I placed the final signature, a silent participant in his undoing. Over the next 4 months, the transformation of his life into mine became a rhythmic, mechanical process. Richard moved with the frantic energy of a man who believed he was winning. He transferred the house, a property valued at $1.4 million, into my name with the flourish of his pen. He moved the investment portfolio, $880,000 in total, shifting every stock and bond into my control. He did not stop there. 2 luxury vehicles were retitled. A commercial property lease he held was signed over. Even a brokerage account he thought I was unaware of was emptied and redirected to my own. I watched it all happen from the sidelines. I offered no resistance. I asked no questions. I became the most compliant wife he had ever known, a silent vessel for his misguided generosity. Every time he handed me a new document, his smile grew wider, more self-satisfied. He was convinced that by hiding his wealth in my name, he had built an impenetrable wall against his creditors. He did not see the wall for what it actually was, a cage he was locking from the inside. I organized nothing. I made no grand gestures. I simply accepted each piece of his life as it was handed to me, watching him systematically dismantle his own security while he believed he was protecting it. The silence in our home grew heavy. The morning of our 12th anniversary arrived with a deceptive stillness. I rose before the sun, moving through the kitchen with clinical precision. I set the table with our finest china, the porcelain clinking softly against the polished wood. I waited for him to take his usual seat, his face bright with the expectation of a celebration. He reached for his coffee, his eyes scanning the table for a card or a token of affection. Instead, I placed a single, crisp white envelope next to his cup. He paused, his hand hovering over the paper, a flicker of anticipation still lingering. He tore it open, expecting a note of devotion. He pulled out the letter from my attorney. The silence that followed was absolute. He read the first line, then the second, his eyes darting across the formal, cold language. The house was mine. The investment portfolio was mine. The luxury vehicles were mine. Every single transfer, every document, bore his own signature, notarized and witnessed. He had built his own cage, and now he was trapped inside it. There was no negotiation left. No room for discussion. His lawyer called within the hour, voice frantic, searching for a crack in the foundation. Then he called again, more desperate, demanding a meeting. The call stopped the moment my attorney sent the response a concise, irrefutable summary of the facts. There was nothing to negotiate, no room for discussion. He had handed me everything, signed it all away with his own hand and that familiar, self-satisfied smile. People often ask if I planned this from the start. I planned it the moment he sat down with that first document, the moment he revealed his intention to use me as a shield. He called it protection. I called it a settlement. He thought he was being clever, a strategist outmaneuvering the system. He forgot that clever and smart are not the same thing. He built the cage, he locked the door, and he handed me the key. Justice is not always a loud event. Sometimes, it is simply the quiet, inevitable result of a man losing everything he thought he owned.